Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Ogo, you can start.
Good afternoon, or good morning, everyone, wherever you're logging in from. Welcome, welcome. Over the past 8 years, the ATO Annual Lecture has been an invigorating engagement of professional minds held at the ATO Studios in Lekki, Lagos, Nigeria. We have featured a wide variety of speakers from various backgrounds and discussed key issues pertinent to our development and performance as professionals in the building industry. In response to the COVID pandemic of 2020, the lecture was moved online for the first time. Ironically, the lockdown of 2020 expanded our reach, and for the first time, we have 3 speakers in 3 locations, with one halfway across the world in New York and various participants joining from all over the world, literally. This year, we are very pleased to welcome you to this second virtual presentation, the 9th installment of the ATO Annual Lecture. We thank you for joining us, as this lecture would be impossible without your presence. So, welcome. My name is Ugo Chris Alita, Director of Corporate Communications and Director of the Abuja office. I will be your host today. We're very proud to mention that this event is endorsed by the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria and is eligible for CPD points. We will be posting a link in the chat box to enable you claim your points. Please look out for the link and click it. Thank you once again for joining us. I invite everyone joining to drop a line in the comment section and tell us where you're logging in from. You can do this right now. We want to see where you're logging in from. At this point, I would like to invite to the stage the Managing Director, ATO Architects Limited, who is also the Honorary Secretary of the Association of Consulting Architects Nigeria, ACAN, and a Fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, Architect Ekaite Basi Fuja.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much, Ugo, for that introduction. As usually happens, I have a technical glitch just when I do need to have one, but I will move ahead. Welcome, everybody. We are really honored to have you. I see we have over 135 people already, and we are honored to have you all. The future is suddenly very different from how many of us had imagined it a couple of years ago. We had all grand plans, we all did not see the pandemic coming, and the good thing, or maybe the bad thing, is that we are not alone. What does the future of Nigeria look like? What does the global future look like? And at what points do these intersect? In 2020, December 2020, we managed to have our 8th annual lecture, with most of us believing that, at the end of 2020, we would have left the virus behind and the pandemic. And in a way, we did. We left COVID-19 behind. What we see now are siblings and children of COVID-19. The latest one is Omicron, and we are not sure whether it is a newborn or an illegitimate child that has been in hiding. The majority in Nigeria do not even see COVID as a problem. I don't know whether that is a problem, but the reality is that more people die of malaria, HIV, tuberculosis, and cholera every day. The uncertainty of projections by analysts was revealed or emphasized by the pandemic and the fallout of the pandemic. And this means that adaptation is key to our survival. Each of us recorded some wins during the lockdowns, even if it was more family bonding time or smothering, depending on who you are. Some individuals, entities, and sectors have adapted so well that they have actually done better than they did pre-COVID-19, or should I say pre-COVID? Now it has so many names. Everybody's future, or should I say the path, is different, and also because our starting points are all different. What we have to do to be ready for our future will be different. What is the future of architecture, engineering, and construction, of the environment and of work in these areas? What is the future of the individuals, the institutions, the communities, and societies that we work for? How will our work affect, enhance, or otherwise the way people live, work, socialize, and play in the future? What in the way we work will continue to matter, and what will the beneficiaries of our work no longer require us to do? We have to learn to solve real problems. Nothing is as exciting as solving problems that will make people's lives better. We make the mistake of thinking that climate change has nothing to do with us, and then go ahead to design buildings in spite of the realities of local climatic conditions. Our drainage systems are full of plastics, and design and research to use these in construction is very limited. Instead, we sit and are plagued by the flooding that is one of the outcomes. And I will say here that, I am speaking from the point of view of living and working primarily in Lagos. The problems across the nations, the nation of Nigeria, range from flooding to erosion to desertification and so on. What becomes of the environment if we continue the way we are going, and what must we do to change that trajectory? All people are stakeholders in the environment, whether they design, build, trade in, or live in the environment. We are never going to have good leadership anywhere in the world. So environments are created by the people who take ownership of these environments, for better or for worse. Calamities are huge opportunities for change and redirection. The 21-story building collapse of the 1st of November 2021 is unfortunately not our most recent in Lagos. A building in Badagry collapsed barely 3 weeks after that one, when the owners decided to add one more floor to an old bungalow. That is another pandemic that must be addressed, and every opportunity for knowledge and skill development and redirection of policy needs to be taken. When we did the first lecture in this series to mark our 25th anniversary as a firm, it was intended to be a stand-alone. The need, however, for continuous learning and engagement has, however, become quite clear. COVID has forced many of us to dive into technology and look at the way we are providing services to the recipients of those services. COVID put before us new possibilities in terms of our relationships with the rest of the globe, and we must leverage on what we have learned to solve our peculiar problems and the other health crises that are spoken too little about. We have to design our way out of homelessness, destitution, and environmental degradation. We have brought 3 brilliant minds to share their thinking and their work in adaptive design and adaptive technologies, climate change, as well as adapting training in AEC and environmental studies to meet the future. This year, we also included a VR competition. VR is virtual reality for those who don't know. Now, I don't know if there was an age limit, because we left it to the young people in the office to organize. And if there was an age limit, please accept my apologies, because I do not believe that knowledge or technology has age bands. However, we don't want to be biased and spoil the fun for them. So virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, rapid prototyping, the Internet of Things, and other smart technologies concern all of us greatly as we design, communicate, test, and build on our ideas. Nigeria no dey carry last ever, but this competition will help us to see where we are and hopefully get other people interested in not just helping us get our hands on the tools needed to help adapt our work to the future, but become a part of designing that future. I welcome you all to our 9th annual lecture. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Ekaite. Thank you very much for that opening remark. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into the lecture. But just before that, we have something to get things started. And we have something for the fastest finger in the house. I'm going to be handing you over to our quiz master. And he's got a couple of questions for you. And the fastest finger gets a 20,000 milliamp per hour power bank for architects and engineers and anybody who's on the go. We all know what it's like when you're on site for hours and you're running out of power. So I'm handing you right over to our quiz master, Mudia Ade.
Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody all around the world. I don't know if you can hear me. Good afternoon.
We can hear you.
My name is Architect Samuel Ade, and I'm your team master for today. Just as the presenter has likely said, we have some quiz questions to all participants. Senior to get the reward for this question. So I would advise you pay attention to the question, and here it goes. The demountable, can you hear me? The demountable Stadium 947, which was found in Qatar, is predominantly made out of what element? I'll take that again. The demountable found in Qatar is predominantly made out of what elements? You have the option A, recycled aluminum cladding. Option B, shipping container. Option C, prefabricated timber. And option D, fiber reinforced plastic. I'll take the options again. Option A, recycled aluminum cladding. Option B, shipping container. Option C, prefabricated fiber reinforced plastic. Thank you.
So fastest fingers first. We will announce the winner at the end. We're taking notes and we'll announce the winner at the end of the quiz. Okay, a couple more minutes. All right, so I'm going to go straight away to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Stefanie Adisa. Stefanie Adisa is a practicing architect who engages in artistic and academic projects. Since 2015, she has been director and lead architect of the architecture firm Studio Elementals in Lagos, Nigeria, with works internationally. Recent works have been in Nigeria, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Liberia, and Iraq. Stefanie holds a degree in architecture from the University of Applied Arts, Vienna. Before shifting her focus to Nigeria, she co-founded SEMF, a collective for art and architecture, and worked for Harry and Sally and Wolfgang Schappler. She also worked with the Applied Foreign Affairs Lab in Vienna with engagement in urban research projects in Ghana and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Furthermore, she's an edge expert and currently involved in issues of sustainability and green building practices and their impact on the built environment. Aside from leading Studio Elementals, she is on the advisory board of Open House Lagos and engages with urban research stakeholders, such as the Lagos Urban Design Initiative, LUDI. Stefanie speaks at conferences, and her work with Studio Elementals and her personal interviews have been widely published. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first speaker, Stefanie Adisa.
Well, thank you very much, Architect Crisaluto, for this generous introduction. And also thank you very much for ATO for inviting me to this lecture. I hope you can see my screen that I've just been sharing now. Okay.
Yes,
So
we can see your screen.
Okay, wonderful. So I would like to start with mentioning that our work at Studio Elementals strives towards making a positive impact on emerging urban environments, which are very rapidly changing. And therefore, the theme of adaptive architecture means a lot and is really important to me personally as well. Adaptive architecture can be used as a term, and it's usually means a framework which changes its structure, behavior, or resources according to request. It's often driven by internal data and also includes buildings that are designed to adapt to their environment, inhabitants, and objects. Adaptive architecture can also be used as a tool, and it is there to create buildings which are flexible, sustainable, future-proof, rather than fixed objects trapped in a particular context and time. And there is also adaptive reuse that can be applied to existing buildings. Now, if we look at the term future-proofing, it's quite a broad term that can encompass not only buildings and infrastructure, but also communities, cities, countries, or the whole planet. It has adopted different meanings as well within different contexts, ranging from resilience to climate change to demographic changes and resource security. So the question is how changes might happen in the life of a building, right? And how likely those changes are to happen, and how serious would the impact of such a change be, such as climate change, and what is the cost of future-proofing against that change? So those are all very challenging questions with very, not plannable outcome. We don't know what we are proofing against sometimes, and we also don't know if it might be a waste of resources. So to me, the only chance we have is to adapting this term to the building context, which in our case is Africa, Nigeria, tropical, Lagos, neighborhood, street, and site. And that means a lot of research, and more research to come up with an ideal response to these changes. So to me, these design responses need to happen according to the building scale. And I will now lead you through a variety of projects in different scales to give examples of how research can impact an output of a building and also help in the design process. So this first example is a spatial installation scale. It wasn't actually a building that was the output. It was a work for the Marrakesh Biennale in 2016. And the project explores the peripheries of the city through various different ways. So it's basically a spatial research that was done with the help of a video installation and drone shots, as well as perspective views and also flying and also inhabitants walking between the streets. And this was later on put into a spatial installation that was quite immersive into these dome-like structures in Marrakesh and as well in Accra for the Chale Water Festival. And I think this was, is a more alternative way of research. It's not research per se in the academic way, but it is research that is very valid in the architectural world, and that can also help us portray different experiences of the city. The next example is a small building scale, and I would like to use this agricultural training center that was a collaboration between the University of Applied Arts Vienna and the UNIDO. And what was special about this project was that the scope and location wasn't clearly defined. So a lot of research had to be put in place ahead of time to even understand the location, which was meant, this project was meant for internally displaced peoples in Iraq due to ISIS and the recent, difficulties in the area. And ahead of time, a desk research was done for several months actually to research different flows of IDPs into the area and also into existing IDP and refugee camps in the area. And at the same time also doing a field research on site, trying to understand the views of people, doing a lot of interviews, also walking through existing camps, looking at their organization and how that could possibly impact a building design, also understanding the spatial setup of such a camp. And in the process, we realized that a lot of infrastructure is actually already in place, but what is missing is a space for women that can be a safe space and also a private space for them to undergo training, but also just hang out and have a good time. Then there's always the possibility for additional research once a project has been completed. In this case, there was a student project after which an exhibition was also held at the University of Applied Arts and an additional publication. So I think in architecture sometimes this post-production phase kind of gets lost because we have a lot to do from one project to the next, but it can't be enforced enough that this post-production is also a very important tool for understanding our next goals and also understanding how we can adapt to the future and to other projects. Then I would like to continue with a medium building scale. This project is located in Lagos on Admiralty Way, and the special approach in this case is how the building is embedded into its surrounding context in a way that it is more accessible to many people around compared to other projects in the area. So a lot of detail has also been put into the landscaping, and you can see that the site is very open. It's almost as if the street kind of draws in to the building and includes the building into its urban environment. So to me, site plans are a very important tool to show context and to understand context and how we can work with it. A lot of times architects a lot of people see the site as one rectangle that is independent of the rest of the surrounding, but that's not the case for us architects. Then I would like to also give a large building example. The client was into agriculture and requested for a lot of urban farming to happen in the building, and with also a lot of planted elements. So to prepare for this project, we did quite a lot of research into this direction, and I will lead you through that in a second. What was also special is the location on Gracefield Island in Lagos of Chevron Drive, which means that we have an empty site. There is no immediate context, and we now have to draw from maybe history, cultural elements, and we need to come up with a design story that is still interesting and has an impact on the building. So of course, we always have to do site analysis and also wind analysis, very important in such a case. And we looked a lot into urban farming and how this could translate into or can be integrated into a building, such as outdoor community gardens or vertical gardens or even greenhouses. In the process of that, we also realized that the initial natural environment of the Lagos Lagoon was mangrove forests, which kind of has been forgotten over the years because now we only see buildings and water. And mangrove forests are actually quite fantastic in the way that they form a cyclic system. And I will explain that more here. So once leaves from the mangrove drop into the water, they actually decompose, become nutrients for other little fishes and oysters, which then become food for fishes, and then the remains go back as nutrients, which then is being treated again by the mangroves. And it's quite interesting because this same system is used in aquaponics, where you use a fish farm to water plants. So the nutrients of the fish remains are being pumped into the earth, and then comes nutrients of plants. Then the plants clear the water, which is now becomes a beautiful cycle. And these two logics can actually be transformed into a building logic as well. You know, if you think about it in a broader term. So a public lagoon can, or let me say, a dense routing system could be a warehouse, for example, or the water level could be an aquaponics pond, and so on. So you can really translate this mangrove forest into a whole building with its different elements and draw from that as an inspiration. You can even take several elements of this mangrove forest, you know, and turn it into architectural elements such as screens, facade elements, and just spatial moments. So what I'm trying to say is really that if we do our research and also take inspiration from further away, we might also come up with something very meaningful and interesting and, you know, new in the current context that we are in, something that is for the future. Then the last project is on an estate scale. It's called the Palm Estate because the project is located within an existing palm plantation. And what is wonderful about this to start with is that we have existing you know, trees that are even in a grid. And second, we have the very rich Benin building culture that we investigated in the course of this project. So there's actually so much to draw from existing cultural knowledge or even lost cultural knowledge. So there are, for example, the urban layout of the old Benin city, which was actually the longest wall system in the world, which is so interesting, and a lot can be drawn from that also in terms of section. There is the traditional courtyard house of Benin, which goes from increasing privacy to from more public to more private buildings. And then we can also learn from the courtyard systems, from drainage systems, impluviums, and trees within our buildings, and how that also translates into a whole estate layout. So we followed the palm grid, which is actually a triangular grid. So you can't have a rectangular street grid working with an existing palm grid. And this can also follow into the details such as driveways and how the street feel comes about. You know, everything becomes different, and the palm grid is something that you can really rely on to come up with a more interesting or more adapted design solution. This would be the result of it. So it comes up with a spatial plan that is way more organic compared to a rectangular grid. So thank you very much for listening. I hope I didn't take too long. And yeah, thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you very much, Stefanie. That was really interesting. I think one of the things that stood out for me was when you talked about learning, you know, from nature, like the ecosystem, and something to extract from that is to see that nature has existed all of these years and for centuries. And if we're talking about adapting to the future, then we must learn from those who have adapted over centuries to still be here today. And if we're going to survive for the future, then we must learn to adapt. What has nature done to still be here at this time? And then another interesting thing was when you talked about the project, I think of Chevron Drive, where the immediate context was gone, it was lost. And you had to reach back into history to try to understand what that environment was like before. And see that we can recreate that, because it didn't just disappear. It was eroded by man, you know, and by our activities. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure we're going to have questions towards the end. I'd like to ask everyone to just take note of your questions, or you can use the Q&A button on your screen to type in your questions, and we'll take the questions all together at the end. If you're just joining us, this is the ATO Annual Lecture, the 9th edition. You're welcome to join us. If you're just joining us, please drop a line in the chat box. Let's know where you're joining us from. We have people joining us from Aba, from Abuja, from Jos, Ikeja, Port Harcourt, Kano, Oshogbo. We've got some people from Vienna. I think those must be your people, Stefanie. We have people from The Hague in the Netherlands. We have people from the UK, Warri, and Malaysia. So thank you very much. We'd like to see more people from Enugu. We have somebody here from Enugu. We've got lots of people from Jos, and someone is here from Mina. Thank you very much. Keep it coming in from Ado Ekiti. Lots of people from Jos. I'm wondering how come, and someone from Akure and Akwa Ibom. Thank you very much. Somebody made a comment on the last question. You are correct. It is not studio. It's not Stadium 947, but Stadium 974. It is Stadium 974. You are correct. But the question stands, and the winner of that quiz is getting his prize at the end. Right now, we've got a digital smartwatch up for grabs. Stretch your fingers, crack your knuckles. Second question coming right up. Over to you, Mudia Ade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Architect Ugo. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm sure we now have an idea of what we are talking about with regards to these quizzes. And just to make it a little bit more exciting and participative, that's why we're having this session. So now we'll go to our second question. And what we should notice is that each of these questions have something directly related to the topics of discussion we're having today. So in as much as we try to pay attention to the quiz, we should also try as much as possible to take out lessons from from the lectures going today. So for the second question, it goes like this. According to the Guinness Book of Records, where was the first 3D printed office complex unveiled? According to the Guinness Book of Records, where was the first 3D printed office complex built? A, Qatar, B, Italy, C, France, and D, Dubai. I'll take that again. A, Qatar, B, Italy, C, France, and D, Dubai. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mudia. I'm seeing the answers pouring in. I'll give you a couple more seconds. I wish I could throw in my own question to ask who was the speaker at the very first ATO Annual Lecture, and I'll answer that myself, and that was Professor John Godwin. What I like about the lectures is we've had all sorts of interesting people come speak to us, come ginger us to think about things, to think about what we do, think about the way we do things and the impact of what we do. We've had structural engineers, we've had mechanical engineers come talk to us. And I think I'm going to dive right into our next speaker. The person who's answering by typing Qatar, please put in a letter. That's Olukunle. Please put in the alphabet we're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our second speaker right up. Our second speaker is Hassan Anifowose. He's the co-founder of Chronos Studios, Chronos Stores, and Print My Drawings. He's also the host of a Creative Architects event, a serial entrepreneur, and a registered architect. He has, since founding Chronos Studios, been an active contributor to the visualization subsector of the architecture industry in Nigeria. He earned his Bachelor of Technology in Architecture degree, BTech, from the Federal University of Technology, FUTA, Akure, and a Master of Environmental Design with specialization in architecture from the University of Lagos. He's presently a PhD in architecture candidate at the Texas A&M University. Joining us all the way from Texas, please welcome architect Hassan Anifowose.
Hello, everyone. Mic check. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can hear you. We wish you would be louder, but we can hear you. Thank you.
I'm just gonna speak louder. I hope that works. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, we
Thanks
can
for the
hear you.
introduction. Awesome, awesome. My name is Hassan, and yeah, funny enough, I'm actually joining from Michigan today, so it's a little bit cold. I'm trying to stay warm, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much, ATO Architect, for inviting me to the lecture. I'm going to share my screen now. And let's see, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Can see your
Awesome.
screen.
Okay, so let's barrel on with it. I'll be talking about the theme, which is adapting to the future, and I'll be speaking from some technology side of things, outside design. So I see a couple of my colleagues, some of my ex-bosses. I say hello to everyone. Let's run with it. So here again, just a snippet of who I am, what I do. I am currently working with Swiftwall and Chronos Studios, of course, as founder, and we're running some very interesting research in building information modeling and VR, especially for product manufacturing and training. So, and I also have experience with UX, UI. I work with virtual experience interaction lab as a UX researcher. And I'm also almost rounding off my PhD now in construction science at Texas A&M University. And I'm working on VR game design titled Interactive Virtual Construction. So here are some of my previous projects from the past, mostly while I was in Lagos. And now today we'll be looking at content regarding first adaptation. We're going to look at the past and the future. And also we will look at questions and opportunities in architecture, engineering, or construction. We're going to also talk about collective intelligence, which usually is an ultimate power. And also we'll talk about VR, AR, and AI, standing for virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence in architecture, engineering, and construction. And we'll be thinking about the whys, the whats, and the hows. We don't have a lot of time to cover AR and AI today, so I'll talk mostly on what I'm doing on VR. So here is my popular, I call it my popular, quote about the future. And I always think that the future is an opportunity to connect the dots for humanity. We must embrace it to build better living, more productive businesses, and ultimately happier people. Keywords, ultimately happier people. It's as much as we see how everyone is trying to think about what the future is like, one thing is important, and that is we need to make sure that people have better lives, either, with the living conditions, the jobs, the businesses, ultimately living in great conditions and being happy is something we need to consciously gear our objectives towards, because there are a whole ton of global issues that we don't even want to start talking about. But again, if we start here, we probably may be able to conquer all of those big issues. So let's look at what adaptation is in the past and in the future. So in history, we understand and we fully agree that the two world wars actually changed science and technology. It changed how, we saw computers. It changed how we saw phone technologies. There was a lot of inventions surrounding, from the way information was passed across different war fronts and all of that. There has been new research in architecture and construction to meet huge and, really, really huge housing needs, because human population is growing by the day. And also there was extensive, theoretical research about human and machine cybernetics. We've seen different movies. We've seen Terminator, we've seen RoboCop. Just about 2 days ago, I saw someone demoing an exoskeleton on a human practically, and, doing all the gestures, and that exoskeleton was responding. And this is this is something that was really, really interesting. And if you think about how much we can now go into danger zones without being harmed, that is very impressive. So there's a lot of things going on. And COVID-19 has even, just done way more for us than we actually thought. And just like Ekaete introduced earlier on, it changed a lot of things. We're talking about health, we're talking about work and living, we're talking about disaster response. And as we all know, this lecture probably wasn't going to be this format, 2 years ago, but now here we are. And we've basically adapted to a new model of living. We understand that there are new requirements that we have to meet up. And one interesting thing about human beings is that we always adapt somehow we always adapt, and it's nature. A lot of people reassess their lives and connections, and people are starting to prioritize living just more than just trying to get some work done or just try to survive. There's been a huge differentiator in disaster response, especially with China. And now we're talking about the metaverse. Facebook is playing a big role in how interactions are going to be in the future. So let's have a quick look at what happened during the COVID response. And China actually assembled a hospital in 10 days. I watched the live stream, for several days, and I saw how this thing was put together. Now we're talking like, this is beyond design. This is beyond, we're not even talking about design in 10 days, because of course that already happened. We're talking about thinking about what could happen, trying to prepare ahead. And I always tell people now that if you have a business plan, you better make sure there's a pandemic response section, because you never know what can happen, right? So China did this, and that was really, really mind-blowing. And let's start to question ourselves that what are the things that actually go behind this? What makes this successful? I can assure you that it's beyond just the lines. It's beyond designing spaces for patients or doctors or machines or robots or anything. It's way beyond design, actually. And in this particular case, robots were delivering medicine and collecting test samples instead of nurses doing that. So we got a rude awakening to say that, look, the world is moving very fast, and now we're going to that interface where humans and robots are actually going to start, interacting. Now, beyond all that you see, there is a ton of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And usually I split three, everything about a business or any model that works. You have a product or service, you have a process, and then you have people. And there is a ton of things that make all of this work together. There are touch points where, the outside world sees, there are interfaces between the outside world and the inside. There's, cloud synchronization of files and data, everything is live. And of course, a lot of times there's also local storage as backup in case of failures. Then there's a ton of collaboration across disciplines. And when you're collaborating across disciplines, there's always this element that you have to have an idea to an extent of what the next discipline is doing. So that way you can infuse your own professionalism, your discipline, and make the best out of it. There's security, there's encryption, there's data protection, there's outreach. How are we telling people what we're doing? How are we showing what we're doing? I mean, just imagine that the live stream was actually set up just even before the construction started. Who thought about that, right? It wasn't just a response. It was well planned and thought out. And then there was analytics. How did we do? How much did we cover? Where did we fail? What are the responses? What was the perception? What can we do next to make things even better? All of these are things that go beyond just design. So don't expect that this is going to be something about design. It's going to be beyond design. So let's look at questions and opportunities in the AEC sector. And I usually have a ton of questions. I deem myself to be a very curious person. And I have a lot of what ifs and why nots all the time. And sometimes these questions, like I jokingly say, keep me awake at night. some of the questions we need to start asking basically about our practice, about our businesses, about everything we're doing in architecture, engineering, and construction is, can we fully achieve these things? You know, can we fully digitize projects with building information modeling, for example? Can we have collective intelligence and collaboration with BIM and VR? Can we have reduced safety risks on job sites with building information modeling and more, you know, possibly VR? And again, what is possible? What are the things that are possible for us? Can we efficiently scale businesses? We're getting feedback from someone. Can we efficiently scale businesses, you know, products, processes, and people? And can we gamify training to gain autonomous motivation? How do we get people to want to train? How do we get people to want to learn without having to force them or anything? How do we get that autonomous motivation where people actually want to do what we want them to do? So we're going to get to that point. And again, 3 major ideas that are disrupting, you know, the construction industry. The first is, you know, model-based cost estimation, digital collaboration. And for now, I'm just going to focus on BIM and VR for training and business. Looks like we might have to mute someone. Not sure where the feedback is coming from. So yeah, so let's talk about collective intelligence, which is the ultimate power right now. Lots of people and, you know, lots of disciplines are collaborating. We have the architects and the design team actually on one side. We have the virtual design construction expert or the building information modeling manager on one side. Usually this is the point where I fit right now in the scheme of things. And then we have the trade contractors, which are the people that are going to do the construction. We're talking about the partners, the, you know, the contractors and everything. And usually we found out that, you know, the best way to make sure that we're getting the best output on projects is to make sure that we're live, you know, collaborating. And that goes an immense way to, you know, to determine project outcomes. We've gone way beyond the stage where the architect finishes design and then hands over to another consultant who then hands over to another consultant. Right now, everything goes in right there. And a lot of times the client is actually, you know, well involved in the process of things. It's still pretty difficult, especially for a lot of, you know, upcoming, you know, growing companies and stuff. It's a lot of growing pains, but I can guarantee you that that is the point where everybody needs to start looking towards, where, like, you know, live models are uploaded to BIM 360. I mean, this image is from Autodesk. Class detection happens. Everybody knows where things are going wrong or might go wrong. And all those issues are resolved immediately, even before you hit the ground. So it's almost a perfect build when you start out. That way you can cut out a lot on delays in construction, which is a big, you know, big issue in the industry. So let's look at a quick section, which I'm going to talk about my works in VR in architecture, engineering, and construction, whys and the whats and the hows. So I'm currently developing a virtual construction laboratory, and basically one of the things that we had to do first was to do digital asset development, and digital assets have to be as close to reality as possible in order to enhance perception, in order to enhance realism, in order to enhance actually training outcomes. And this was actually tested out in the research. We needed to have highly editable components. We did a lot of cross software, you know, functionality testing to make sure that all the components are working across almost any software in the industry. And also, we didn't just start developing the product. We stepped back a little bit and we did user persona interviews. Who are the people that are using our product? A lot of times as architects, we design spaces. Sometimes we do case study, we do research on who is going to use the building, but a lot of times many of us still don't. And I believe that it goes a long way in contributing to the success rate of anything you're doing. One of the key findings we had when we talked to the users or the prospective users was we realized that cost was at the bottom of everything they were even considering. Nobody was worried about the money suddenly. And typically we started out to think, oh, the cost was going to be a big deal. So it's important to make sure you're conducting interviews or, do some research on your end users. That usually determines the outcome of a lot of things you're probably trying to develop. So here is just a, screenshot of a prototype scene for the interactive virtual construction scene. We had an area where, users could step in and actually access pre-assembled walls. They go to the next area where they can actually access the components, test them out, feel them out, see the scale in response to their body size, see how they can manipulate objects in virtual space. And then they go to the third stage, which is an assembly training area where they actually have to do the assembly and get scored. So depending on how much time they have to complete the exercise, they get the scores and they see how well they're doing. They want to try again. They want to try much more difficult levels, and then they get feedback. And to an extent, they get trained. And eventually, when they go to a real job site, they don't have to expose themselves to all the safety risks because they have, pre-trained in almost close to reality scenarios. And in this case, this was an airport scenario, which was where the product is mostly being used. So we did some testing. We did some testing on precision. And very interestingly, we were almost able to get the precision to almost a 0.01 precision level, which was very tasking. It was a lot of coding. But again, there's a lot to learn from this. We got very interesting interaction techniques to learn from. And, we were able to strike huge precision and almost achieve a lot of realism, lighting, texturing, baking, and all of that, scaling. And we actually realized that people performed better when the objects were slightly smaller than the real life scale objects. For some reason, we don't know what that reason was yet, but that was an interesting find. So let's talk about the quick results in how we were able to match reality with virtual, matching performance between physical and virtual. And we actually realized that there was a lot of similarities in the performance, timing, especially after we started to optimize the game. We increased the frames per second rate. It was smooth to play. There was no lag. There was no hardware interference. And we also realized that being able to do all of this in VR actually cuts down a lot on having to prepare physical training materials. We saved on a lot of carbon footprint and cost. And also, this basically gave us grounds to work on a commercialized version where people can actually pay out on a subscription plan or any kind of payments and get trained to carry this product. So here is the takeaway from my presentation today. It's important that professionals in the architecture, engineering, construction industry actually have a lot of self-development and adaptation to career opportunities. It's going way beyond design. Everything doesn't end at design nowadays. A lot of things are changing. So people always, it's advisable that people don't get very stuck in the mindset that, oh, I have to be able to design a 50-floor building. No. Sometimes you might have something else to offer as an architect and still be on that 50-floor building team, really. So make sure you're developing yourself, learn as wide as you can. And also for businesses, I would suggest to businesses to train their employees in BIM to unlock better potentials. There are people with absolutely immense potentials, but actually building information modeling forms groundwork where a lot of things can spring up from. And also, this will also go to businesses and individuals. Try to establish automation in your day-to-day tasks. Cloud share, synchronize files. It could be a lot to start with, but I can tell you automation is going to save you a lot of things. Just imagine if you are able to automate 50 emails in a month. Imagine how much time it saves you from having to type an email. So think about how you can do all of these things, and that way you can save up a lot of time on doing the things that you really want to do and pushing the frontiers that you really want to push. This is going to be the end of my presentation. I hope I was right on time. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'll be happy to take questions later.
Thank you very much, Hassan. This was really interesting and very, very informative. I think one of the things in the past, people thought technology in architecture was more for the geeks, you know, people who were not so interested in design, but more interested in how the computer works, or how, you know, to do BIM, or how to do the techie things, you know, but more and more we're finding that technology is like air for everything that we do. COVID-19, for example, has taught us as an office, as a firm, and as an organization, you know, that we needed to collaborate more. Some of the things that we talked about before, pre-2020, we talked about moving our information into the cloud. We talked about, you know, collaborating between our various offices, because we have offices in different parts of Nigeria. You know, we were forced by the pandemic to actually make that a reality. And we found situations where we have design teams comprising people in different locations, you know, and being able to leverage on the abilities or the strengths and capabilities of one person in one office to collaborate with somebody in another office. And that was really important. Something that struck me as well was using BIM to sort of test run ideas, you know, trial, does it work? You know, is it going to work? It's less expensive than finding out on site, you know, and that's a mistake a lot of people are making. Some people are not investing in this software because they think it's expensive. I think it's more expensive to make the mistake on site. And so it's more, we should be thinking about things like that. And then most importantly, the interviews, you know, talking with your end users, finding out what's important to them, in a way, democratizing the design process. So yes, design is very important, but right now skills beyond design are required to be effective, to be effectual, and to adapt to the future, because you can design something that is stuck in today and it doesn't mean anything to the end users.
Changes so fast.
Yes, it changes so fast. Thank you very much. I really like that. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of questions. Please keep your questions coming in. Use the Q&A button, not the chat button, because it's going to get lost in everybody saying thank you and saying hello, and I'm buzzing you from
Hi everyone, I greet you.
Yeah. So please put your questions in the Q&A box. That way your question will get seen, your question will get asked right after the third speaker. Right now we're going to go back to our quiz master, and right now he's put away a smartwatch for somebody. He's also put away a digital bank for some other architect who's hopping on trains, buses, and airplanes to get to different places. And we are going to be giving away now a wireless Bluetooth earbuds. Wireless Bluetooth earbuds are going up next in the next question, which you'll be seeing right about now. Mudia Ade, over to you.
Thank you very much, Architect Ugo. We can see, thank you to our participants as well who have actively engaged in our quiz sessions. For this third question, it's a bit tricky, so you need to pay serious attention to the question in order to get the answer correctly. It's still talking about the contemporary process in design construction, how we can bring about more contemporary methods in implementing our designs in the construction phase. So like I said earlier, I would need an acute attention to this question because it's quite tricky. And the question goes as thus. According to the Guardian news, in 2015, a Chinese construction company claims to be the world's fastest construction company after erecting a 57-story building. In how long? I'll take that again. According to the Guardian news, in 2015, a Chinese construction company claimed the world's fastest construction company after erecting a 57-story building. In how long? Option A, 9 days, B, 21 days, C, 30 days, and D, 60 days. I'll take the option again. A, 19 days, B, 21 days, C, 30 days, and D, 60 days. Good luck, all our participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mudia. Let's have the answers. Have I started seeing any answers yet? 19 days, 21 days. Let's keep it coming. Let's keep it coming. Our third speaker, somebody started talking about him in the comments. I think he's got a lot of his students in the house. I heard some very interesting names for him. I didn't know. I couldn't relate to our speaker. So I'm just going to go right ahead and read his bio. 1 minute. Our third speaker is Professor Mike Adebamowo. Mike Adebamowo is an architect, sustainable architecture specialist, and professor of architecture with interest in thermal comfort, architectural science, and energy use in buildings. His research work focuses on sustainable architecture, energy use in buildings, and environmental performance of buildings. He holds BSc and MSc degrees in architecture from the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and a Master of Architecture degree with distinction from the University of Lagos. He also holds a PhD in Geography and Planning from the Lagos State University, LASU. Professor Mike Adebamowo joined the service of the University of Lagos in 1995 and became a professor in 2015. He has served the university in various capacities, including head of Department of Architecture, and is the immediate past dean of the Faculty of Environmental Sciences. The erudite scholar has over 40 publications in national and international journals, and one of his publications won the Best Paper Award of Emerald in 2018. As a consulting architect, he has designed and supervised several building projects, including the remodeling of the Faculty of Arts building, University of Lagos, RNA City Hotel in Ikeja, and the Citadel Church building, Oregun, Lagos. He's a member of several professional associations, including the NCEUB in the UK and ASHRAE. He's a fellow of the Society of Environmental Toxicology and Pollution Mitigation, and a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. He has supervised over 300 master's and 13 PhD students successfully and managed research grants. He will be speaking on the role of adaptive education training in shaping minds who are ready to tackle the adverse effects of COVID-19 and the climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome our third speaker, Professor Mike Adebamowo.
Okay, we can't hear you, sir. I think you are still muted.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, sir. Yes, we can.
Great. I'd like to thank ATO Architects for organizing this lecture and also for inviting me to speak on architectural education, adapting to the future. And I'll just go straight by sharing my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
All right. Oh, thank you. It took some time. The aim of this lecture really is to investigate how architectural education in Nigeria can actually respond to the adverse effects of climate change and COVID-19 with view of adapting to the future. And that will also take me to speak about sustainable architecture, which is the art and science of designing and creating well-maintained buildings that are energy efficient, healthy, comfortable, and flexible in use. And there have been many recent movements in architecture that have tried to address the two sides of the equation on sustainability. That's technological innovation as we have seen in the presentation of Anifowose, and social provision. But unfortunately, most times we are tilted into either to one side or the other. But there is a need for the combination of the two, because sustainability essentially, or sustainable architecture, will have no moral validity unless these two sides of the equation are addressed. And the key to this is in education, in the training, of professional architects. And architectural education actually covers the provision of knowledge regarding architectural design, enabling individuals to understand the cultural, intellectual, the historical, the social, economic, and environmental aspects of architecture. And at university level, the NUC and ACON regulates the training of architecture. And currently we have 2-tier degree structure, which we have been operating for over 4 decades. The first tier leads to the award of the bachelor degree, and the second tier to the award of master degree in architecture. But architectural education essentially is committed, to high quality of professional education aimed at producing architects that have understanding in solving technical problems and environmental problems, as well as applying the knowledge to tackle and coordinate other related professional inputs. And I'm glad to hear in Hassan's presentation now, it's not just all about design, but the architect that is being trained must be well blended or well-rounded and grounded in a way that will be able to coordinate the entire process of design and construction, and not just really about design. And this is carried out in architectural schools under 8 teaching modules. Design skill module 1, under which we have architecture, landscape, urban design, all the studio works. We have the communication skill module 2 in terms of graphics communication, and under which also currently we're talking about all kinds of software programming that we could also use in communicating. And the module 3 is in historical and theoretical studies in architecture. Module 4 in building construction and technology, under which you have building materials and components, structures, and all of that has to do with building construction. And module 5 on humanities and arts, the research inputs into architecture, environmental psychology, or the environmental impact analysis, and the studies courses relating in this area under this module. And module 6 on environmental services or environmental control system, under which we have climatology, urban climatology, building climatology, architectural science, building services, air conditioning, because all this, the training is required in this area. And module 7 in physical science and information technology, which is really huge now. And module 8, management studies and entrepreneurship studies. And talking about the future, something that remains constant really is the change. And change, either voluntary or imposed, can take place at different levels, multiple levels, either individual, organization, societal, global. And we must all prepare for change. And in the built environment, the contemporary issues of climate change and COVID-19 have actually complicated the change dynamics, even as we have it. And climate change and COVID-19 cannot be treated in isolation. And that's why I've developed here in this study, STEEP analysis, STEEP being an acronym, S standing for social, T for technology, E for environment, E for economy, and P for politics and legal. But our focus here is on the environment, in being able to use this to analyze the Nigerian built environment. Because as we prepare for the future, nobody can know for certain what the future will be, but we can at least envisage it in order to be prepared for it, because the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. So the focus of this lecture is on the environment and how architectural education can respond to the change dynamics of the environment although environmental issues essentially cannot be treated in isolation. So in preparing for change, there is a need for us to peer into future. Some studies have actually shown that the inevitable rural and urban migration is due to climate change. But most studies have indeed really confirmed that the rural and urban migration is chiefly on for economic reasons rather than for climate change. And this is important and it's also instructive of these findings. And that's why you have that depressed economies and unstable repressive governments will rather seek better standard of living, job opportunities in urban centers and thriving countries. And that's what is responsible for the brain drain as we have in Nigeria. And that's why it is important for us to be able to advance solutions into, these problems as we peer into future. And the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic has shown that the real world is fragile and there is a need for us to prepare for future, even for worse things. Now we are having various, variants of COVID-19, Delta variant, Omicron, and who knows what other variants will come in the future. So I have this chart. I believe you can see this chart in preparing for future and in terms of the adaptive education that will be built. We need to also understand the past. We find out that between 14th and 20th centuries, there had also been an outbreak of infectious disease. We remember the bubonic plague, we have tuberculosis, we have typhoid, we have cholera, we have polio, we have Spanish flu. And what was the response then? Essentially, it was architectural in terms of urban renewal, in terms of sanitary reforms, in terms of building and housing reform, in being able, to address, the pandemic as it were then. So right now, the lessons from COVID-19 pandemic, we can actually build lessons here by stepping back into nature and stepping forward into technology. Stepping back, we need a combination of this really in order to be able to address this issue of pandemic. In stepping back into nature, we'll be able to consider issues that have to do with nature. Will you still be able to see my screen? I can't see the screen any longer. I think it's a network.
Yeah, maybe you want to reshare it. I don't know.
Oh, I see. So, okay, I will reshare it, but I will just quickly explain for the sake of time that we step back into nature, okay, and we step forward into technology. As we step back into nature, we look at urban approaches in solving this problem, in addressing this problem in terms of expanding horizontally, fewer, density, cities, decentralization, urban farming, fewer cars now, more cycling and walking as we have, and architectural approaches in self-sufficient strategies, refocusing on green spaces, low-rise buildings, better air quality, okay, and step forward into technology, as Hassan had rightly, presented it in modular construction, lean construction, adaptive reuse, lightweight and adaptable structures, hygienic building materials, ability to work from home, that's digital transformation, artificial intelligence, and touchless technologies, and where robots and humans can easily interact. That is stepping into future, that's technology. But I believe sincerely that our solution is in the combination of the two, into nature and technology. And we need to bring this together, even as we look at the goals of COP26, which are essentially for net zero, and countries are called to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050 and to keep global temperature, below 1.5 degrees centigrade. And we can see all the other goals as are shown here. And in reaching this goal, it means we must phase out coal, we must have more renewable technologies, we must reverse deforestation by 2030, electrical vehicles as we have. And in achieving these net zero emissions, training also have to be in terms of the design of buildings, location, orientation, and form, which occupies the large band in this graph, and the lowest one has to do with use. So you can see from this chart that rather than relying more on appliances and on gadgets, it all begins by getting the design right in terms of location, orientation, the form, and the fabric elements. And it is through this we can essentially reduce energy use in buildings, just like the same in achieving the 17 sustainable goals, out of which 10 will relate directly with the focus of our discussion today. So the future of architectural education is quite interesting. We know it's not static. Environment is not static. Nature is dynamic. Therefore, architectural education is expected also to be dynamic. If we take, lesson from bioclimatic design of Victor Olge in designing, buildings with climate, we found out that even in this current nature, or beyond bioclimatism, the origin of bioclimatic approach itself can be traced to vernacular and traditional buildings. And that's why I am advocating for the combination of nature and technology in solving this problem and in training and looking into the future. And the same thing we have today as the sustainable architecture, green architecture, regenerative architecture, biophilic architecture, biomorphic architecture, biomimicry, smart architecture, biotech, and high-tech architecture can all be put, into one box as to relating nature with technology. And again, we have with us different softwares that have been developed, and all these softwares put together, Ecotech, Architect, Revit, SketchUp, all transiting from CAD to BIM, to BIM, and that's what we have. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to conclude quickly by attempting to answer some 5 pertinent questions and also quickly present to you a project, which we have just concluded that peeps into the future. The first question is how students are prepared for the unpredictable future and the challenge of climate change. And I will simply answer by saying, yes, our students are being prepared, by virtue of what is currently happening in the modules, in the course and in the teaching, emphasis being placed on occupant safety, health and comfort, on architectural science, on sustainability. The second question, it will be that what are the extant modules in preparing these students for climate change? And that in all those 8 modules that I've enumerated, it only means that from time to time, we look at the contents of the courses, and improve on those contents, which we do also from time to time, also applying further innovation and findings from research and technology in improving even the course delivery, curriculum, and the way and manner these courses, are being taught. The third question has to do with what about the degrees, whether there will be any change or not. I believe very sincerely that the 2-tier degree structure for training architects will still be the best option. However, as I've said, curriculum is being changed from time to time, and there are higher and professional degrees in MArch, in PhD architecture, which I would rather prefer, that architects only will have PhD in architecture, but others will have PhD landscape architecture, PhD in architectural studies, as we have in reputable institutions abroad. And the fourth question will be, what will be the role of the institute, in all this? And the role is clear. What ATO architects are doing, ARCON to collaborate with academia to in CPD lectures. I'm glad to see that what we are doing today to at some points, some CPD points, that is the way to go. And other organizations, especially NGOs, today in UNILAG, yesterday we met with Arcline BI Design Foundation, and they are partnering with the United Nations to mark 2022 as International Year of Glass. You'll be amazed to see the unlimited possibilities of the use of glass as a building material, a sustainable building material. And the final question as to how does practice dovetail into teaching? Give me some few minutes in answering this question, because that will help us with the design portfolio and the project that we have just concluded, that I'll quickly show us now, which is the Citadel project. And we'll see that this is an animation. This was done about 5-6 years ago in terms of the design, about 6 years ago, but it's currently standing now. And we'll see the work of the animation compared, to the live building as the building is standing. But what is interesting here is in the design, the flexibility, the adaptability, the sustainability, and the approach to the design, a church design, essentially the worship center, the auditorium, over 5,000 seated, capacity. But beyond that, there are other facilities like classrooms, okay, that are used on Sundays for Sunday school teaching. But between Monday and Friday is a full-fledged school going on there. That's the kind of adaptability that we're talking about. This facility functions 24/7, not just on service day, 24/7 all throughout the days, 7 days a week, because all facilities in terms of training, you could also find that youth center, youth connect center, health facilities in terms of the swimming pool, the gym, the sauna, as we will see right in this animation. So essentially, we're saying that as we look into future, even in terms of in analyzing the client's brief, analyzing and synthesizing to come up with a design, we have to prepare for future in terms of adaptability, in terms of flexibility, and in reducing carbon emissions in all what we're doing, and engaging in softwares and in technology, in being able to solve the problems of the future. And students have to be engaged in this all through in terms of training. And that is why even the students are involved in this practice. Where we are seeing right now is an atrium within that same facility where you have, a greenhouse effect. And this is showing part of it in terms of the library, the bookshops, and facilities that can be used by the community. Because I believe essentially that our buildings must be energy efficient, it must be community inclusive, socially relevant, and it must be ecologically balanced. And in putting this together is how we can address all these, for the future. And this is the reality on ground. That is the animation, and this is reality. And you can see that there is really no difference between that which was proposed and that which eventually had been executed here. So in going forward, in closing, I would like to say, we could see that even before pandemic came, this design had been done. Now we are facing with pandemic. We don't know what else will happen again. But our design as architects ought to be trained in a way that we will not panic. This will not come as a surprise, because essentially design has been done in order to take care of these future eventualities. I really want to thank you for the opportunity given again to present this, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Mike. Thank you. That was a very, very rich presentation. I think I'd really like some more virtual applause here. I want to see the hands clapping. Thank you very much, sir. I think one of the things, there was a lot to pack in, but I think one of the things I'd like to highlight on was we need more education in green building strategies, that is moving towards the past, towards nature, and then moving forwards towards technology. I think that was something that really caught me. And then the continuous improvement on existing courses and modules to make sure they're relevant and responding to the realities in which the students living today. I think it was really good, sir, that you took the time to show how you've implemented these things that you're talking about in a project, in a live project that we can see and that we can relate to. I think that really, really hit the nail on the head, and made your lecture really real. and practical for all of us. We have quite a lot of questions. I'll start with one of the last questions because the person said they had difficulty posting it in the Q&A. And it's a question for you, but the questions are coming so fast. I hope I can find it. I think that's Mr. Deji Toye. If you can post your question again so I can see it. So while I'm waiting for your question, I'll go quickly to the Q&A box and I'll take the questions. First question here is Professor Adebamowo, great stuff, proud of you. Okay, that's not a question. So someone said, as the world is getting to be a computerized village, most institutions still go into drafting with sheets and pencils. The ARCAN and the NIA should consider reviewing school curriculums. And I think you touched on that.
Yes, I did. You want me to respond to that?
Yeah, maybe I'll rephrase this and ask. Now, what you said in your lecture, is it something that you're doing at UNILAG? Is it something that you are doing as HOD or as a member of faculty? Or is it something that is mandated by the NUC? And what kind of push are you also having from our regulatory bodies to ensure that there's this constant innovation and improvement?
Thank you so very much. This is something that we are doing in UNILAG. It's not an individual thing. It is institutional. And UNILAG has always set the pace as far as this is concerned. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Please.
Oh yes. Has always set the pace because long ago we have been having our students exposed, in the days of cards. Now we are talking of BIM, and this really is important. So the issue of drafting, while we are still maintaining the fact that, as architectural students, it's important that you are able to draft, you are able to sketch. Okay, so at the lower level in year one, we have quite a number of courses that will take you through in freehand sketching. Even as you progress up to your master's level, you still keep your sketch pad, for sketching and the rest of that. But essentially, we don't have all kinds of manual drafting, large drawing boards that had been, discarded many years ago because it's of no use. We train architects and we prepare them for the industry. And I make bold to say that I don't know of any architectural firms that are still doing manual drafting. So really, the world is moving, everything is changing, and we are not going back.
Thank you very much. I can see some questions for Hassan. You were typing an answer, Hassan. I'm going to ask you to
Hello,
turn
are you
it
there?
into a voice question. Okay, so the question is, what's the place of VR in evolving economy? How can it be successfully integrated with present architectural training? Yes, that's a question for you, Hassan. I don't know if you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. So I'm not particularly sure what that question meant, but I'm going to try to answer it. With respect to present architectural training, I think just the way that CAD started out, and now we're having BIM integrated. I don't know if there are schools in Nigeria that are starting out formal BIM trainings. But if there are, yes, that's very commendable. And then going beyond that, there could be formal, training with respect to VR in architecture, right from within the schools, and then eventually maybe in the firms and practices. Yeah. How it can be successfully integrated, I'm not sure. It's mostly exploratory for a start, because even if someone must be trained, whoever is training them has to have, done a high level of work before implementing that training. So it's still mostly in exploratory phases, but I think if it starts to become mainstream, there could be opportunities for formal training.
I think if we start to look at training, stop looking at it as maybe a trainer being all-knowing and then passing on that knowledge to the students. Perhaps we could all learn together and explore together, you know, so it's in that way, the process of training is more collaborative, you know, as against when we were starting up as students or starting out as students, and then the lecturer was seen as somebody who was all-knowing, you know. But in this case, because this is pretty new technology, there is nothing wrong in all of us exploring and growing, you know, together. So I think that may be a useful approach, you know, to this question. But while I still have you, before I go to a question for Stefanie, someone had a question where they asked your thoughts on the computation of design principles, strategies, and data, that is computational design. And they wanted to know how, if you see this role replacing the position of an architect.
Right, and I just did answer that out and I typed that, but I'm just going to reiterate on that. So it never used to be a bother for the past couple of years, but sometimes, I think last week, I saw a demonstration that actually had someone just moving a wall on the floor plan, and you know, the walls basically redesigned that just by that wall moving, it redesigned the entire spaces, including the furniture requirements, you know, just based on the kind of parameters that was fed into it. So that shook me up a little bit, in the sense that I'm starting to think that, you know, if the way things are going, at some point the client's going to have control over his design, and by that control, architects might be threatened or challenged. And then the role of the architect now starts to go beyond just offering space design. The architect has to migrate to offering something that is not automated yet, something that a software can't provide yet, something that just by Googling, you can't find answers to. Yeah, so I think that's where architects need to start thinking. I can certainly guarantee that the role is going to be challenged. I wouldn't say it's going to be replaced, but it's going to be challenged for sure. Based on what I saw recently, the role is going to be challenged. I can say that for sure.
Well, if I was going to chip in on that, I would say maybe what is being challenged, the representational aspect of the architect's role, that's of design, because the actual design is more than being able to represent it, you know, graphically. Right. I remember many years ago, we worked on a project with Professor John Godwin, and a design had been done, was printed out on paper, and he made a comment on it. It wasn't even my work. I think it was someone in my office, and he drew a head and, you know, put the bubbles to show a fault, and he said, think before, and he drew a computer. You see, we're focusing a lot
on the tool.
This question is on the tool. It is still a tool. The actual creativity, the actual design, the actual innovation is what makes you an architect.
Right.
You know, the ability to sketch, the ability to think and create something that did not exist before is the actual domain of the architect. Every other thing can be a draftsperson. So I don't think it can threaten it, but it can actually improve it, and people can move lines around. And you can enter a house designed by an engineer and you will know that it was not designed by an architect.
Right.
So, yeah. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. We have a question for Stefanie, and she typed out an answer, but I wanted her to shed a little light on it. And the question was, what is the major difference between adaptive architecture and regenerative architecture?
Okay, so I will also talk a bit about what I already wrote. So the two fields, I think, are overlapping. It's really about you know, including the natural environment and understanding the impact that a building has in its surrounding. And I'm actually really glad about what you just said, Architect Ugo, because you know, we are talking a lot about the tools and about, you know, how we can make architecture more efficient and how we can make building processes more precise. But sometimes the design part, the urban part, the impact that architecture can have on our whole surrounding, on a whole city is left out. And I think that is where the biggest potential still lies. If we look at a city like Lagos, there isn't Actually, that
I think we have a bit of a glitch there. Okay, while we wait for her to come back, I think I'll quickly cut to our very last question. And this question is for the prof. I think Stephanie's had an internet thing that happens to all of us here. Prof, this is our last question and it's for you. And someone said, how is architectural education better integrating the examples of heterodox practitioners like Dimas Nwoko, who have done extensive work in both design and alternative materials well ahead of the new focus on sustainable architecture? I'm made to believe that these examples used to be marginalized in the formal architectural schools. So they're talking about the informal architecture versus, the more formal methods of architecture. So are we integrating the examples of practitioners like Dimas Nwoko, who have done extensive work in both design and alternative materials?
Absolutely, we do. And I also want to say, absolutely we do. And I will also want to say that in recognition of this work of Dimas Nwoko, my own trainer and mentor, Professor John Godwin, wrote a book on Dimas Nwoko. And in University of Lagos, Department of Architecture, we ensure that our students are also brought along in the work and the architectural practice and design that we do. We have quite examples of that. Professor Godwin himself is an expert in sustainable architecture, in bioclimatic architecture, and his works actually speak for him. He designed the Faculty of Science. He has quite a number of projects, the CMS, bookshop building, where we also did some training and studies of sun shading devices. So the same thing is applicable in the works of Dimas Nwoko, who I agree with the person asking that question, that without formal training, we cannot discountenance the work of Dimas Nwoko in terms of architecture, with nature, and in terms of his contribution in that direction, in using, indigenous and local materials, and the humble contribution he has done in that aspect. And also in answering this question, we'll see what the works of Professor Olusoya has done in Unilag and my humble self. And we found out that we are able to combine what we teach in studio and what we actually practice. So this is still an ongoing thing, and it will continue in that. But the point I'm trying to make in my lecture is that it's a combination of nature and technology, and we are not going to put anyone aside. Technology is advancing and is helping us a lot, but we must not discard that traditional wisdom and how we can connect back with nature. And I believe that is the message of Dimas Nwoko. That is the work of Dimas Nwoko. So we can, with the advantage of technology, even now take research further and do beyond what Dimas Nwoko has done, what John Godwin has done in his own time. We take advantage now that we have VR, we have AI, we have all the technological inputs and softwares, and we can take that further, which makes it easy. For example, I remember in those days, Professor John Godwin will bring all the, bioclimatic charts and some parts diagram, to class, and we will be doing all this charting. Okay, it will take a lot of time. That's the first principle. But computer has replaced that easily. You can do several simulations, with that, and you are getting the same thing. But the fact remains that, the principles are still the same, and you are entrenched in that architectural science, understanding the science of it. Then you cannot take it further with that understanding and put the element of creativity that you have expected, of every architect. And that's the question that I believe Hassan was also trying to, respond to, that yes, our role is being challenged. Even though it's being, we should not deceive ourselves. Truly, our role is being challenged. Even there are certain aspects of creativity too, okay, that is being even put into data and into computerization. And as a result, you find that robots and the rest of that will play it. So the technology is going in a direction that is not only providing for architects for presentation, beyond presentation. So we must also recognize that. But the truth of the matter is that it's the architects too, with the elements and understanding in and the knowledge and with our creativity, that will also be able to develop such programs and softwares. That's why architects too are relevant, even in the development of such software. So finally, Adebamowo is an institution, is an icon, and his work, as far as I'm concerned, our students are benefiting from the likes of Adebamowo, just like we have the Maxwell Fry, okay, we have our own Adebamowo, we have our own John Godwin, and we have our own Olumide Olusanya.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. I think that the only way to really move forward is to understand the past and take that past with you, because it's part of who you are. I want to quickly touch on a quick question, because I've been told by my handlers that I have a little more time. This question is for Hassan, and they're asking what your thoughts are about architecture and the metaverse. Now, you'd answered it, but I want to add to that question. You know, someone once asked, what is the metaverse? Is it meta, as in Yoruba? Three things. It is Facebook, it is WhatsApp, and it is Instagram. So there are three, and it is meta. And when he acquires Twitter, it will now be Maruverse. Can you explain, first of all, what the metaverse is and what the connection is to architecture? Shed some more light on it. Thank you.
Basically, okay, so the metaverse is it's a world, it's a virtual world that people are going to have the opportunity to interact in. And this involves being in spaces like virtual houses, virtual offices, and things like that. Yeah, that's what the metaverse is about. So for example, if we say Facebook work can happen in a virtual office building, and people will be able to move around in that building and, you know, talk to each other like they were right beside each other. Yeah.
Okay. Great. I think we're actually starting to feel a bit of that in the way that everything you do is so connected, and people are having virtual parties, or we're having lectures like where we are all together, you know, in one virtual space that feels almost as real as being in the same room with someone. Sometimes communicating electronically or digitally with people, sometimes you don't realize you haven't even spoken to them or seen them in the last 2 or 3 years. So there's a beauty to it, and there's a certain, how do I say, a certain intrusiveness, you know, to that technology. But I think this is something we must embrace while protecting ourselves from the dangers that will, of course, always lurk, you know, with these technologies. So without further ado, I'm going to take a pause and announce the winner of our first quiz. First of all, before I do that, I want to say a big thank you to all our speakers, and I hope you will stay online, because somebody who is better equipped to tie the laces of your shoes is here to say thank you. But I want to thank you very much for engaging us and causing us to think, because the point of this lecture is not to come and hear. The point of the lecture is not to come and hear, but to hear enough to make you think. Think about what you do, think about how you do what it is that you do, either as an architect or as an engineer. So I'm going to go very quickly to announce the winner of our first prize, which is the 20,000 capacity power bank, and it's John Chuang, or Chuang John. If you're here, can you quickly put your name, just indicate. We have your email address. We'll be in touch with you to get your power bank across to you. Chuang John, thank you very much for answering that question really quickly. Let me see. Okay. The winner of our second prize is smartwatch, Abdulaziz Yerima. If you're still here, please quickly type where you are so we know where you are. I need someone to help me mute the airport I'm hearing. Thank you. So the winner of our second prize, the smartwatch, is Abdulaziz Yerima. Thank you very much. And then the winner of the third prize, which is the wireless Bluetooth earbuds. One second, my screen just went off. Bankole Sholaja. Bankole Sholaja. Abdulaziz Yerima is celebrating. Where are you located? Can you just type in the chat box? Let's know where you are. That's the winner of our smartwatch. And Chuang John, if you're still here, just let us know where you are. And then Bankole Sholaja, the winner of the wireless Bluetooth earbuds. Thank you and congratulations to our 3 winners. Let me confirm that my team is ready to announce the winner of the design competition we held last month, all through the month of November, leading up to the beginning of December. When I get that signal, I'll quickly announce, but in the interim, let me find out if Mr. Onojide, our chairman, is available to give the vote of thanks. Okay, someone is asking the answers to the question. Let me quickly go to Mudia Ade. Mudia, can you come online, read the questions again and give us the answers?
Okay, thank you very much, Architect Ugo. So for the purpose of clarity, I would state out the questions and give the appropriate answers to those questions. Okay, then I'll start with question 1. For question 1, it says, the demountable Stadium 947 from Qatar is predominantly made out of what elements? That major element it's made out of is shipping containers. It will host the 13 game. It will host 13 games in Qatar, after which it will be deconstructed and shipped to another country, rebuilt there. It's basically for the purpose of demounting and assembling in any given location. So that is part of that's all part of the innovative and contemporary ways architecture and construction is evolving. So this is a live stadium that has already been built, and it will be used. I think it's going to be used as one of the stadia for the Qatar World Cup. The second question goes as thus: according to the Guinness Book of Records, where was the first 3D printed office complex unveiled? And the answer to that question is Dubai. Over the years, there have been a lot of 3D printed buildings, 3D printed apartments, 3D printed live spaces. For this particular question, has the office complex highlighted, and it's located in Dubai. It's a 2,600 square feet office of Dubai Future Academy. It took 17 to print the basic parts and 3 months to complete the interior in terms of getting the windows, the door fittings, and all of that. It was made from a special mixture of cement and with 50% less manpower. So like I said earlier, this still has to do with contemporary and innovative ways of building construction. As the world is changing, obviously times are changing, the mentality of the profession is changing, and we are adapting to current tools available to us to achieve these construction goals. So the third question, according to the Guardian News, a Chinese construction company claims to be the world's fastest construction company after erecting a 57-story building in how long? This happened in 2015, and it took 19 days to assemble this building. They record an average of 3 suspended floors per day using modular methodology. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mudia. I understand the presentation of the winner of the VR competition is ready, and Mudia, I understand you're the man for the minutes. So please go ahead and take this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Architect Ugo. Okay, just as she had said earlier, we at ATO Studios, we organized a design competition highlighting the adaptation of architectural design due to the recent 2020 pandemic, COVID-19. And we wanted to draw the thoughts of inspiring architects on the need to adopt architecture to fit the current situation of our livelihood, the adaptation of our livelihood, the well-being of our interior spaces, and come up with sustainable strategies, flexible design spaces, more like how do we move on when after this pandemic. So a design brief was sent out to interested participants, and their entries were collated. So we came up with the first, the final competitors, which is Obasoje Osasonwe, Mohammed Aliu, and Adefila Inioluwa. Their designs more or less highlighted what the design brief was all about, what the vision of the design brief was looking out for. So we'll just talk you through the entries. So this is the first entry from Adefila Inioluwa. And the title for this is Home for Remote Workers. Like I said, the aim of this design is to see how well they can translate the brief and then give us a design ticking off the boxes that the question, or ticking off the boxes the questions have been set through the design. So this is one of the entries. It seems like a multi-story apartment building, contemporary design, using sustainable materials. Of course, if you see from the facade, it has a lot of active green elements. You can see some climbers, more or less enhancing the immediate microclimate, as well as enhancing the biodiversity of microenvironments. So that's the first entry. Please know that this just says like, because of time constraints, these are just the a summary of their entries, just to help us understand what their final designs entail in terms of the brief put out. So this is the second entry, and the title of his design is Modern Workspaces. I'm sure from the brief, he wanted to highlight how spaces can be used in multifunctional use of spaces, because every brief now talks about how flexible spaces can be. As humans are acting and as humans are evolving, their needs are also, their immediate needs evolve. So it is important as architects to come out with flexible spaces that we can use in our designs and bring about creating flexible solutions and answering our client brief in more than one way. Someone, you can please mute your mic so that it doesn't get too distracting. Thank you. So in summary, for the second entry, he has created a flexible workspace, answering the questions raised out in the brief. So this is the third entry from Mohammed Ali, and the title of his own design is Creating an ICT Institute located in Kano. I said the brief was not location specific. We actually intended to see how you can adapt your design to the local context, more like based on the brief, putting into consideration the design goals, how you'd intend to make your design answer these questions. So this is predominantly made from what I can see, which is what I believe you're seeing as well. It looks like prefabricated timber used as a predominant element in the facade. Also, it has a welcoming green elements. You can see climbers and some stone features. I'm sure this particular entry has a lot of, how do I put it, has a lot of strong boldness in his expressive elements, more or less. Seems very much expressive. Still answering the question stated in the design brief. I don't know if that's the only visual we have from that particular entry. But like I said, the mode of assessment has to literally deal with how well the design answers the questions stated in the brief, and then how designs can adapt to the current clients. So based on these three final entries, we are going to announce our winner. Just give me a second. And the winner of this competition is Mohammed Ali. Mohammed Ali, of course, we had all participants with their brilliant design ideas, which were highly commendable. But Mohammed Ali, more or less answered these questions predominantly from the brief. He ticked off all the boxes, and from his design came closest to giving us the questions we asked in the design brief through the translation of his design. So congratulations to Mohammed Ali, who is our winner of this year's competition. On behalf of ATO Architects and ATO Sales, I say a huge congratulations to you, Mohammed Ali. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mudiade. Again, congratulations to Mohammed Aliyu. The competition entries were reviewed by a panel of 3 architects, Tosin Oshinowo, who many of you know, architect Adebamowo Shokumbi, and our managing director, Ekaite Basi Fuja. And want to thank our jurors for the time and the attention taken towards reviewing these. I want to also point out that the participants in the competition, this competition was open only to students of architecture. So the work that you've seen is the work of students in school, because the first prize, the competition entry, the competition prize is a paid internship with ATO Studios in our offices in Lagos. So Mohammed Aliyu, thank you very much. Congratulations. We look forward to spending the next 6 months with you. Thank you, Mohammed. You're in the house. He's here. He said, I've always wanted to be a part of ATO Architect, and we're very, very pleased and looking forward to spending time with you. We'll be in touch with you over the next few days and see how we can work with your schedule to get you integrated with us. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I'd like to invite to give the vote of thanks our chairman, architect ATO Onojide, who is not able to present. He's actually in here, but unable to deliver the vote of thanks himself because he is currently in transit. But the vote of thanks will be presented on behalf of our founder and chairman, architect ATO Onojide, by our managing director, architect Ekaite Basifuja. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ugo. This has been an amazing 2 hours. We've got so much done in record time. And I have to thank the almost 300 people who have logged on to be with us this afternoon. I hope that it has been as fruitful for you as it has been for us. Mr. Onojide wanted to be here, but he was minding his own business as usual, and they said he had to come to Abuja today, you know, so he's right now at the airport and it is too noisy for him to read out his vote of thanks. So he sent that and I will be reading it out on his behalf. He said, this has been an amazing outing for the 9th year of our lecture series and over 3 decades of the ATO Architects Limited. We are hoping to collaborate with the academia, the regulators, professional bodies, engineers, environmentalists, students, clients, and the environment as a whole. Our aim as an ISO 9001-2015 certified organization is to continue to educate and advance knowledge beyond pure architecture as practitioners, but as important participants in the changing environment. The idea that we should step back into nature and forward into technology is an important lesson we must understand and accept. COVID-19 itself is arguably caused by the fact that we had ignored nature and man has evaded our natural environment with some devastating consequences. I take this opportunity to thank all our 3 brilliant speakers and almost 300 participants who have attended the ATO 9th lecture series. Merry Christmas to you all and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ekaite. Thank you very much. And thank you, ATO. We're very sorry that you couldn't deliver this in person, but you have a very, very able representative who has done this on your behalf. We want to thank once again our speakers and thank everyone who made this lecture possible. I want to thank our back-end team, our corporate communications team, Tony, Abel, Toyin, Mudia, our quiz master, myself and everyone in the ATO Architects and ATO Studios team who's made this possible. Thank you very much. We cannot appreciate you enough. We thank our jurors and everybody who signed in from all over the world. From Malaysia, that one I can't get over. Malaysia, The Hague, Vienna, from the UK, from Warri, my personal people, from Enugu, so many people, Akure, Ado-Ekiti, Osogbo. If I didn't call your hometown, just put it in the chat box and hail yourself. Thank you very much. It was so good. Thank you very much, everyone. We look forward to having you with us next year. I want to state that you will get a recording of this lecture automatically in your box over the next 24 hours or so. You'll get a recording. We will also endeavor to get slides from our presenters and get them across to you. Thank you very much. While we look towards responding to pertinent issues, next year, if there's any topic you'd like us to talk about, there's something you'd like to see discussed in the lecture, we look forward to hearing from you. You can send us an email at info@atoarchitects.com. But barring that, let's see what 2022 holds for us. We expect it's going to be a great year, and we expect that we will beat this pandemic. Thank you very much, and peace out.
Please don't forget, if you want to use this for your account CPD points, please don't forget to fill out the form. The link has been posted a few times. Please don't forget. Thank you very much once again.